This is the pre-draft rookie quarterback show.
Right here.
I'm your host, Big Travie. You can find me on Twitter at Big Travie TFW. I am joined, as always, by my co-host, my business partner, my bromance, Johnny Game Time Hicks. Johnny, you can find him on Twitter at Johnny_Game Time. How are you doing, Johnny? What's going on, man?
I am way better now because of this episode, dude. It has gotten me excited about, these rookie quarterbacks, these rookie prospects in general, dude. I already started to write some names up on my big board. Dude, I'm excited to jump into these guys.
Yeah, I mean, this is fun for a few reasons. Obviously, we like to profile all of these rookies that are coming in that will make a fantasy football difference. We also like to do this because we're football nerds and we love football, the game itself. And obviously, first-round players most of the time garner some, franchise-altering respect as they come into the league. But then we also have the dynasty aspect. Johnny and I are in the Dynasty Whispers, which is a high-profile dynasty league we've been in, and so we'll have our rookie draft there. Obviously, if you're listening, you may be into dynasty. If not, maybe we can help you get into a dynasty league, so make sure you're DMing us there. But also just cracking down and looking at film, Johnny. I mean, this is a lot of fun to watch highlights, to try to hypothesize how these college games are going to translate into the NFL, all these different things that go through the whole rigmarole, as you will.
Yeah, and just, learning as well about the game of football and just what different coaches are trying to do, the schemes. It's fun seeing these guys run plays that you're like, oh, I've seen. I mean, we're going to talk about a couple quarterbacks today, Travis, where I'm like, oh my gosh, I would absolutely love him in this scheme because of his skill set. And you really start to see things like that. And in which, before I was, we were doing this, I never really knew a lot about the rookies coming in. I usually stayed away from them in drafts and things like that. And so, yeah, man, it's gotten me really looking forward to the beginning part of this off season, because this part can be a little bit of a grind. It can be, we just got done with the season, but jumping into prospects like this make our job a little bit more exciting.
Yeah, and if you want to follow the show along at home, you can do so on Twitter by searching at the TF Whispers. You can also find us on YouTube and Instagram at the Fantasy Whispers. And make sure you definitely visit the website, thefantasywhispers.com. We've got articles. I'm going to start pumping out weekly articles here soon. We've got a bunch of swag on the site. You'll have to check those out. Just search the Fantasy Whispers in Google or go ahead and go to thefantasywhispers.com. You can also support the show if you would feel so inclined by going to patreon.com and searching the Fantasy Whispers today. I also want to highlight quickly before we jump into some of the meat of this show, we do have a new off-season schedule that'll lead right up to the NFL draft. We are going to be going live on YouTube with Mock Draft Mondays, and we've already started this, and that's 3 p.m. Eastern Time, 12 p.m. Pacific, live mock drafts on YouTube. So once again, make sure you're subscribed, hit the notifications so you can be notified when we're going live. And then, of course, we have this episode right here. We'll be doing a weekly episode every single Wednesday. We're working on something else for a Friday show. We'll be announcing that as soon as we got that going. But yeah, make sure you're liked and subscribed over on YouTube. We are ready to jump into the main topics of our show, which is 4 pre-draft rookie QBs. All 4 of these guys projected to go in the first round as of now. Obviously, a lot still to shake out. A lot of news and nuggets to come out on these guys, but we've taken the first consensus, so to speak, 4 guys to be drafted that will be rookies, and they've declared for the draft. And we're going to talk about them here, and we're going to start none other than the projected number 1 overall pick, Johnny, Trevor Lawrence out of Clemson, standing at 6'6", 220 pounds. This guy is the prototypical NFL pro-style quarterback prospect. Tell the people a little bit about Trevor Lawrence.
Oh, man, he is one of the best prospects to come out of college since Andrew Luck or Peyton Manning. That's where he's being comped to, and why not? Listen, when he was in high school, he broke Deshaun Watson's all-time high school records and state records for passing yards. He had, check this out, in high school, he had 13,902 passing yards in 161 passing touchdowns. That's astonishing as a high school player. He has the ability to read defenses already coming out of Clemson. He doesn't necessarily have to do it often. It is interesting because, you know, you don't have, you know, I'm sorry to tell you this, Big Travie, and break the news here on the show. I should have had the breaking news drop. I'm sorry. But there's not going to be, you know, the underwear Olympics this year. There are no, they are not holding the draft combine. That is very sad news to Big Travie over there. He's very disappointed in that. But we could tell you all that you need to know right here on the show. And, you know, when it comes to Trevor Lawrence, Travis, it's really hard to find holes in his games. I mean, he's good at running. He's got great arm strength, great thrower on the run. So if he gets, you know, a play, you know, if he's doing like the play action kind of thing, he does throw against his body a lot, but he's really accurate at it. And it'll be interesting to see if he continues to do that in the NFL, because you can't get away with it as much in the NFL. But Travis, I mean, what do you think? I mean, I'm literally telling everyone that I know, go out right now and try to acquire the guys like DJ Chark or Laviska Shenault, or, you know, maybe Robinson if people aren't exactly sure, because I think this Jags offense, let's just say, like, the Jags are going to take him and he's going to be really good for them. He's going to be great for that offense.
Yeah, we'll have to see what happens with the Jags offensive line. You'll want a little bit more protection. I have a fear that this could turn into a Joe Burrow situation where the offense itself, you know, bad defense, offense is going to need to put up a lot of points. It could be good for fantasy. You could have good games out of Trevor Lawrence right out the gate, like we did with Joe Burrow. We could see a similar injury happen if they can't keep him healthy. So monitor the offensive line, which will help you do over the course of this offseason. But yeah, Johnny, you hit it on the head. He was a 5-star recruit out of high school, 3 years of elite college level production. I mean, 34-2 in his college career, Johnny. I mean, that's impressive. And he wasn't just like Joe Burrow last year, where we were like, Joe Burrow had the 1 year. This guy has got it done for his entire career. He's had his high school career. He's had a long college career, ideal height, weight, mobility, even as a tall guy, tall white guy, just to say it. I mean, he can actually get out there and get some wheels. He's no Deshaun Watson, but he is good. I think, you know, obviously the Jaguars are going to take him, and they should. They would be foolish not to. So for an ideal take, I mean, that's where he's probably going to go. I just don't see many holes in his game. And what you're hearing scouts say is he maybe is the best prospect we've seen since Andrew Luck and Peyton Manning. And that is high praise, because both those guys were highly touted and hit at a high clip in the NFL. So if he's getting that kind of, you know, pull, this isn't some sort of, you know, fluke. They believe that he is the truth, and we will see that in the NFL.
So let me ask you this, Travis. I expect him to go to the Jags as the number 1 overall pick. Are you willing to start Trevor Lawrence this year? Do you think? I mean, and hear me out, because the initial answer was probably, I know you said you want to see the offensive line, what they do there, and yeah, sure, with some of the other pieces there, I do get that, but if you're telling me that last year we were high on, you know, Gardner Minshew because of these offensive weapons, because of everything that he could do, his mobility, all of these things. I mean, Trevor Lawrence has all of that, and and some, right? And so, yeah,
like he has, when Gardner Minshew hit, Gardner, for those brief games that we thought he was actually going to be something, or at least for fantasy, it was a surprise. Trevor Lawrence will not be a surprise to anyone if he's good in the NFL. And so I think that's the difference, is he's not only got the weapons that could potentially get him there, he's got the intangibles, he's got the pedigree of a draft prospect to back it up. Yeah, I would say that I'm way more excited for Trevor Lawrence than I was for Gardner Minshew going into last year. And I said a bold take for Gardner Minshew was he could end up top 8. And I don't think that's out of the question for Trevor Lawrence, you know, in redraft leagues to end up top 8, because Joe Burrow was on his way to a top 8 season last year.
Well, I mean, we did see that. Now I'm blanking.
Justin Herbert.
Yeah, sorry.
I mean, and the thing with Justin Herbert is his supporting cast is much better than the Jaguars, I believe, but not crazy. I mean, it's not a crazy, but you do have, you do have a lot of talent there, top to bottom, on the Los Angeles Chargers side of the ball. So we'll see. I think it gets a little bit different when we talk about Justin Fields, and I don't think much. I think the problem with Justin Fields is he's had to live in the shadow, not just because he's shorter than Trevor Lawrence, but also because he's had to play behind Trevor Lawrence as far as another quarterback in the era of Trevor Lawrence in college football. So Justin Fields out of Ohio State, Johnny, 6'3", 228 pounds. This is a 5-star recruit out of high school as well. And actually, Johnny, the 8th best recruit out of high school of all time is Justin Fields. Yeah. So how do you see Justin Fields projecting into the NFL and maybe your ideal fit for him?
And so you touched on it. He went to the same state as Trevor Lawrence, which is quite unusual that would happen. He did originally go to Georgia, and at the time, Jake Fromm was the quarterback there in Georgia. They also had Jacob Eason, who ended up transferring to Washington, and you also had Justin Fields, who then ended up transferring to Ohio State because he couldn't get any playing time, which is kind of wild, considering, like you said, just how talented this guy is. Here's what I like about him, Travis. I'll give you the good, and then I'll go back. I'll give you a little bit of the bad, and then what I ultimately think, right? He's a former baseball player. So, you talk about Kyler Murray, the kind of throws that Kyler Murray could do because of that baseball background. So you do like that. He's bigger than Kyler Murray, right? He's a big frame, 6'3", 228 pounds. To me, he's a bigger Kyler Murray. He's like Cam Newton. I do see some Dak Prescott in him. So all of that stuff makes me excited. The fact that he had a breakout year in 2019 where he had 41 passing touchdowns and only 3 interceptions, while also adding 484 rushing touchdowns and 10 rushing TDs, Travis. We like the rushing side of this from a fantasy football aspect. So to me, listen, I understand Trevor Lawrence and all the draw that he brings and everything like that. But to me, Justin Fields is very, very interesting. I'm very intrigued to see where he lands. I would love it if he can land with Detroit, the Detroit Lions. I think that would be a great fit for him. I'm excited to see what he could do. Got wheels.
Yeah, he definitely does. You mentioned some of the his whole career, 20-2 in college, 67 passing touchdowns, but 19 rushing touchdowns as well. Only 9 interceptions over that span. So you love to see that. You talked about him. He's great. He's got most of the qualities of a legit pro style ready quarterback. You talked about the running, the dual threat there. He does get a little bit shaky with deep ball accuracy, and he does tend to hold the ball a little bit longer for the deep play, which you kind of like to see out of a running quarterback. You want him to be looking for the big play, but in the NFL, you're going to have to get the ball out quick. So scheme will be a factor. The other problem that we have to bring up here, and I don't think it translates that much to Fields because I think he's a much better prospect, but he's an Ohio State quarterback, Johnny. So we're talking about Terrell Pryor, we're talking about Braxton Miller, we're talking about Dwayne Haskins as part of
you put some respect on Terrell Pryor's name, all right?
Hey, Terrell Pryor came in and played some good.
I love me some Terrell, dude. I'm not gonna lie. Like 3 years ago, I was super hyped on Terrell Pryor because I was like, "This guy."
I think a lot of us were, 100%. But we have to bring it up here and talk about. There's a little bit of fear about that spread offense that these quarterbacks go, and it's so friendly in college. And then the Ohio State thing is that they're surrounded by talent there. They have so much talent around them that it ends up projecting, or propelling their numbers up. I don't think that that's much of the case for Justin Fields. I think he's a very talented prospect, and he should go somewhere within the top 10, I would imagine. And I honestly think if the Jets don't get this deal done for Deshaun Watson, I think that's the ideal fit. And we've talked about what's going on there. If you bring in little Mike LaFleur in there, Matt LaFleur's little brother, and you could get this perfect scheme, an RPO scheme fit for him. You get maybe a running back like Aaron Jones. You get another running back maybe in free agency or in the draft. And then you've got a situation where Justin Fields can develop, make the Jets a little bit more relevant this year, and maybe be a good fit for him. I don't know if it's an ideal fit for career-wise because we've seen the Jets ruin people's careers, but I think this is a good fit and a projected fit for a lot of analysts going out there. So I think Fields makes a lot of sense to the Jets.
I'm really
want to talk.
Oh, so
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I'm really interested to see what the Jets do on, as a football franchise with this. Like, do they stick with Sam Darnold? Do they end up drafting a guy like Fields, or do they trade down to try to get more pieces? I think that they have a lot of moves to be, and they have a good amount of cap space as well. So they have a lot going on. It'll be interesting to see how things shake out. But yeah, and then that wasn't even mentioning, like you said, the Deshaun Watson potential trade too. So I just think that the Jets are going to be a real fun team to look at this summer.
Yeah, as far as an off-season team goes, they're definitely a team that's going to have some exciting pieces. I don't know if that'll translate exactly to next year, but we'll see. But some of the exciting players that we get to talk about, I mean, obviously, Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields are exciting, and they should go within the top 10. But a couple other names are getting some buzz out there, Johnny, as top 10, top 15 picks. So we could see another draft similar to the one we had a few years ago with Josh Allen, with Josh Rosen, with Lamar Jackson, where we had multiple quarterbacks, Baker Mayfield, going in that first round. So we could have something like that happen this year because, well, let's just get to the next one. Zach Wilson out of Brigham Young University, 6'3", 210 pounds, Johnny. People may not know about him because he kind of burst onto the scene in 2020, Johnny. What do you see in Zach Wilson's game? Do you see it translating, and what's kind of your ideal fit for the young Utah native?
I'll tell you what. This is one of those situations where what we talked about the Jets, right, and what they're going to do. I would love to see the Jets make this move in which they would actually trade back, because we all know the number 1 and the number 2 prospects, like you just said. I think quietly you'll start hearing people talk a lot more about Zach Wilson. I absolutely really like what I saw on tape for Zach Wilson. Yes, he's a little bit more raw, but I'll tell you what I see in Zach Wilson, and I'm not joking. He reminds me so much of Josh Allen. He reminds me of a guy who has a big cannon for an arm. He's good at going through projections. They ran a nice offense in for BYU. He didn't have the most prolific wide receivers, but I mean, and you can tell, like, yeah, some of his numbers didn't come through because of that, because of some of the plays that he was making, and the wide receivers weren't able to come through down with the catch because they're not. No offense to them, but they're not SEC wide receivers or anything like that. But he's got great touch on the ball. I will say there is a knock on him, is that he does tend to underthrow those deep balls from time to time. We know that he has the arm. Like, I watched tape on him, back-to-back plays, Travis, where he threw, like, on the run, one arm, like Josh Allen does, and he slung it like 60 yards. And it was in the realm of being catchable. Once again, his wide receivers weren't able to make the catch. But I mean, this guy has some accuracy. He can run. He's more athletic than he looks. I like Zach Wilson a lot. I think that he could be a little dark horse here in this quarterback stuff. That don't be surprised if he starts creeping up in these conversations with, hey, do you end up taking Zach Wilson over Justin Fields?
Yeah, Zach Wilson is a little bit interesting, Johnny, and a lot of it is because he's become kind of a poor man's Joe Burrow. He had a bit of a one-hit wonder this last 2020 season, and so it makes you wonder, because he had a ho-hum 2019 season, 11 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, not really popping off the pages there. But then in that year, he became the youngest QB ever to start for BYU. And then if you look at what he did this year, 73.5 completion percentage, Johnny, 33 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions, and then showed some legs with 10 rushing touchdowns as well. PFF, as much as called him an elite QB prospect, saying he can hit on any platform. So much to your comp of Josh Allen, he's got the arm strength to get you there everywhere. I mean, I saw some guys on YouTube that I was watching some of these films comparing his ability to make every throw on the run to that of Patrick Mahomes. Now, not saying he is Patrick Mahomes, but his arm talent on the run is eerily similar. Some knocks on his game, though. Yeah. Some of the knocks on his game, though, Johnny, he's a little bit slender. He has never faced elite competition at BYU. I mean, I think their toughest opponent this year was Boise State. He's a one-hit wonder, as I talked about before, and is under pressure. That's when the accuracy seems to dip, and he's going to face pressure a whole lot more in the NFL than he did at BYU. So that's something to worry about that concerns you. My ideal fit is you hope that without a combine, you hope that the hype doesn't go too crazy on Zach Wilson. And if you're the 49ers, you hope he slips just far enough to get there. That is the ideal fit for me, Johnny, because if you just look at like them not getting Stafford in some sort of deal, I really doubt they get Aaron Rodgers, as some of these swirling rumors are out there. You could see Zach Wilson being a guy to grab for the Niners. He's a RPO aficionado. They ran a ton of it at BYU. You've got playmakers around him like Kittle, Debo, Ayuk, who could really get the ball in space and really help his progression. And then we look at Shanahan getting CJ Beathard, Nick Mullins, these guys that are kind of nobodies to produce, not just at a fantasy level, but at an NFL level. I love Shanahan's ability to morph quarterbacks into his scheme, and Zach Wilson just seems to be the perfect fit for the 49ers.
I wrote down here, Detroit pick 7 is a really ideal landing spot because of, how they're picking and stuff. But right after that, I said, or San Francisco at pick 12. If he can drop that far, I think you nailed it on the head. And there was a play specifically I watched where he did a play action rollout. The play it could have been out of San Francisco's playbook. It seemed that similar because you had the tight end slip underneath and then drag up the sideline there, and he hit him on a wide open play. And you just imagine, you're like, yep, that's George Kittle right there. Perfect. That's exactly what they want him to do. I think that would be the perfect fit for him. And if he does go there, Travis, I do think that there is we could be talking about him as a potential sleeper guy that you'll be able to stream throughout the weeks because he has the ability to throw guys open, and that scheme could help him a lot.
The Niners would just need a healthy year. But check this out. The last time San Francisco drafted a quarterback from Brigham Young was Steve Young. Hall of Fame career out of Steve Young. From Brigham Young. So you like to make that comparison. I don't think he's Steve Young, but I think Zach Wilson's got a shot to be good in the NFL. All right, our final guy in this pre-draft rookie QB episode is Trey Lance, standing at 6'4", 226 pounds, out of Carson Wentz alma mater, North Dakota State. Johnny, before I jump into some of the things that I saw out of Trey Lance, I wanted to see what you think coming in at Trey Lance. He's not a name that a lot of people are talking about. And that's because, Johnny, COVID kind of wrecked their opportunity to play football this year. He only played in one showcase game for 2020, given that he's not in a BCS Power Conference school. So how do you feel about Trey Lance? He made the leap. He said, forego this next year. I'm just going to go ahead and make the leap off of one game and a really solid 2019.
Yeah, I have my concerns, to be honest with you, Travis. Listen, this guy has he's still so young. So yes, a lot of these things are coachable, and it'll be interesting to see who kind of takes the gamble. But I just think he's super risky, right? His footwork is a little rough. You talked about because there's so little game tape to go off of, and you talked about the COVID stuff. You could tell between the game tape. From year one, he was a lot. He was taking more and more steps, like he was doing the 5-step drops, but he wasn't. Just the plays weren't in smooth. Like it should be a 7-step drop. Step back, throw should all be in one motion, right? Should be smooth. Well, his wasn't. So then it was interesting because you watched the tape, the very little tape that he had last year, and it was almost like they created this hitch on his, like it was like a dead leg from the quarterback position. The best way that I could, describe it, because I'm watching, I'm like, who does that remind me of? And it's Cam Newton. It was almost like he was watching Cam Newton's tape, and I kind of understand why, because he has a lot of the same kind of tangibles that you see Cam Newton have. But of course, like when he did that, right, this dead leg, and you know what I'm talking about. Like you see Cam Newton do it, where he is not on his drop backs. He's not so fluid, so he takes like this slow step back, but it's a lot more fluid when you get the ball out, but it's a lot slower. And so you saw that a lot in that very few games that you saw this year. So Travis, I don't know. He needs to let plays develop as well. You saw some play calls where He had a read that he should have waited for the play to develop a little bit more. He had like a safety come in. He tried to force it in there, incomplete. And then you saw that same play happen later on in the game. And the underneath is now wide open where he went before. But instead of going there, he waits and he goes into a direction where it's covered. So I think he still has a lot of room to improve. But he's definitely going to be a project for a team. But he has some good tangibles. He's probably the most athletic runner in this entire group.
Oh yeah, I mean, for sure, he's got all these. You talk about him needing to develop. I mean, he is young; he's 20 years old, and so people ask, like, why wasn't he scouted more? Why didn't he make it to a BCS Power Conference school? He was underscouted because he was a late bloomer. Like, he graduated high school early, was super skinny, super scrawny at his like scouting day, and other guys were cutting him in line, they said, and they were like pushing him out of the line, and this was just like some little kid trying to throw some balls. So he goes to North Dakota State, right? Has a rough 2018, but then gets to start 2019. 28 passing touchdowns in his season, 0 interceptions, Johnny, on the year, 14 rushing touchdowns. I mean, just completely broke out at 2019. You talk about his footwork and the knocks on his game, and I agree they're all there because he's extremely raw. Mm-hmm. But if you remember, Carson Wentz had the same kind of knocks on his game coming out. Josh Allen, the same kind of knocks. And these are the guys, you mentioned Josh Allen being a comp to Zach Wilson. I think Trey Lance fits the mold better for Josh Allen in my mind, doing the big arm, the mobility. He's definitely, to me, got one of the highest ceilings in this draft class. He has a ginormous ceiling. Now, his floor is also very low because of what you talked about in his raw ability. But I think that if you got him into the right system, you got him into the right coaching staff, and you got him maybe the luxury of sitting behind someone, I think he could be somebody that could really pop out. And I think that ideal fit in the first round
Green Bay Packers.
Is the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah.
So they've got multiple weapons, including obviously a guy in the name of Christian McCaffrey. I don't know if you've heard of him, but that powerful running game could complement the development. Then you talk about maybe being able to get to sit behind Teddy, even if just 1 year, gets to sit behind Teddy and kind of learn a little bit. DJ Moore, Curtis Samuel, Robbie Anderson, all providing different levels of wide receiver help for him to kind of get going. And then the biggest thing for me is Matt Rule coming in as the coach, is a fresh out of college, man. So this is a guy that can talk. Who can talk to a younger quarterback and help develop a younger quarterback. So for me, I like Carolina as the fit here. I think Trey Lance is going to start creeping up boards and get a lot of credit. And I understand the concern, but honestly, if you're looking for a future of a franchise, why not get somebody you can invest in, make a project, and then if he hits, man, you're looking like the Buffalo Bills with Josh Allen, and a complete culture change, a complete franchise change.
Do you think, seeing what you see, knowing the quarterback state and quarterbacks in the NFL, excuse me, do you think Trey Lance will be a first rounder? Because to me, it's
interesting you say that. So there's Adam Schefter came out with a list a couple of days ago that 18 quarterbacks could potentially be jostled around. Now that included Aaron Rodgers, who I will say again on this show, Aaron Rodgers is not leaving the Green Bay Packers, not this offseason, at least. The cap hit would be astronomical. He has already clarified his statements that he thinks there's no reason he shouldn't be back this year, but he's just saying that his future's uncertain now. So 17 quarterbacks, let's say, are going to be in limbo. That's if you include Deshaun Watson and Matt Stafford and some of these other trade opportunities. If that's the case, then yeah, it would maybe make sense that, the other, 15 teams that are in the NFL maybe aren't enough based on what we've talked about. So you take 3 of those out because they draft the other guys. So we got about 12 teams that he'd be in the market for. Mm-hmm. Maybe they don't need a quarterback. So it's really interesting to note. But we saw the Packers do this with Jordan Love. Jordan Love necessarily didn't need to be a first-round pick, but they moved up because they thought some teams behind them would take him.
Someone was going to take him.
But maybe somebody was, maybe somebody wasn't. Who knows? Like, there's a lot of draft day.
And maybe you guys have landed your next quarterback for the next 14 to 16 years. Who knows? Man?
I would hope so, but we'll see. I want to keep milking Aaron Rodgers' years, see what happens there. But The bottom line with Trey Lance is everything that I've seen. I mean, Mel Kiper and Todd McShay both like him in the first round and have said as much as maybe the top 10. So there is reason to believe that Trey Lance, I mean, I think when you look at how raw he is, you're just trying to find a hole in what he's shown on the very minimal tape. And the very minimal tape is that this guy explodes off the tape with upside. So we will see if teams buy into that upside and sit him behind someone. I think that's the answer. I think Carolina would be an awesome fit. San Francisco as well, because if they're still committed to making Jimmy G a thing, they could have Jimmy G roll out there. Maybe this lights the fire on him, and then they have their future with Trey Lance behind Jimmy G when inevitably they have to pull the plug there. There's a lot of good fits out there. Minnesota is another team that's interesting. I know they have Kirk Cousins on the hook, but Minnesota's sitting there in the middle of the first kind of.
See, Minnesota would be someone that if they could get Zach Wilson, I'd be super intrigued. But once again, I don't know if because there are so many quarterbacks out there, man, it just reminds me every time as a Cardinals fan, man, we could not find a quarterback. I mean, there were no quarterbacks, 10 years ago, and now the quarterbacks are coming in every single year, and you're like, where are these guys going to go? Because it doesn't seem to be enough landing spots, So it's just interesting to me that you could have, because there's no
the other point on that list that I was talking about with Schefter, where it's like 17 quarterbacks. Some of those quarterbacks are Mitch Trubisky, Sam Darnold, quarterbacks that we're not 100% sure if in a QB competition with a guy like Trey Lance or Zach Wilson that these rookies wouldn't win.
Right.
And so like that's the other thing to me is I think there's always going to be a premium for quarterbacks. I don't think that at any point a team that goes and picks up Mitch Trubisky as a lottery ticket isn't going to also be doing their due diligence to scout a quarterback. Look at Washington a few years back when they drafted Robert Griffin III, but then turned around and drafted Kirk Cousins. So, I mean, there's situations
in the same
where
draft.
Teams, yes, in the same exact draft. So quarterback is always going to have that leverage that, for a team to go pick one up. And I just think these four, after doing some doing some digging on these guys, these top four, I really like these bottom two, Trey Lance and Zach Wilson. I think there's some pop to them, and I think we're going to be excited about this draft class when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this draft class. I'm looking forward to seeing where these guys ultimately land.
Well, we want to know what you think, Whisper Nation, what you think of these prospects, these QBs coming out in this 2021 NFL draft. And then, of course, we'll probably spotlight them a little bit more once they land on an actual team. Make sure you're subscribed to every single platform we got out there, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, by searching the Fantasy Whispers. For Johnny Game Time Hicks, I am Big Travie. We are the Fantasy Whispers, and we're out. Peace.
Peace.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Whisperers podcast. You can hear more from John and Travis on Google Play, SoundCloud, and iTunes. You can also follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at TF Whisperers.